Welcome to the Money Puzzle. I'm Rebecca Powers, your host this week. So happy to be here with one of the managing partners of Family Wealth Planning, Brian Ramsey. Good to see you, Brian.
Good to see you.
So what are you hearing this week? I know that you have an open door policy. Your clients love you because you are always there to answer the phone and answer questions. What are some of their concerns this week?
Well, overwhelmingly, we're hearing inflation.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everybody's worried about.
Yeah.
And really the question is, should you believe the number that came out? So the last number came out, inflation was 9.1% year-over-year growth. The question is, should you actually believe that?
Yeah.
And our answer is, well, I'll let you decide. So we did, I don't know, it's been several weeks ago when that number first came out, we were like, you know what, let's just do our own little research to see if that number is even accurate. Because I know when I go out to the grocery store, I'm experiencing a lot more than 9.1%.
It certainly feels like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we just did some basic Google searches, just like everybody else can do, right? So what we did, we looked at different categories that we typically all consume or use, different products, right? So for example, we looked at food. Food's up 40% year over year. And that's probably about right, because I know I go to Kroger, and when I go, I know my bill was normally about $100 to $120 a week, and now it's like $150, $175 a week. So that 40% is about right.
Okay.
Energy is up 50%. Now I get it. You're probably going to have people call and say, because we've said this when client meetings, wait a minute. When I get gas, I get it, but it's all the electric. It's your LG&E and your gasoline as well. So it's everything. Yeah. It's everything combined. Housing up 15%. We work with a lot of realtors, and I can tell you price is way more than 15%, but it just happens to be our area that we're up a little bit more. But on average, national average is up about 15%. Cars, 40%.
Yeah.
And good luck
trying to... Is that normal? Yeah.
Well, no, but good luck trying to find a car.
Especially a used car.
Well, yeah, that's part of the issue. I bought a car a year ago, this past July. And I went on the car lot. Typically, I bought it 2 years ago. I could pick out any color I want, whatever, options. There was one that even fit the parameters of what I wanted.
So is it the supply chain? Is it supply and demand? Is it because the economy's been so good, everyone's spending, buying? What is it?
A lot of it's the supply chain issue, right? Okay. Because here in Louisville we have the two huge Ford
plants,
plants, and right by my house, I live out in Crestwood, so you drive down Hans Lane, they are always taking trucks down there because they don't have the chip.
Wow.
So they can't sell them yet. So they're just parking the cars out there. So yeah, a lot of it's supply chain issues. It's the chip manufacturing. That's the biggest issue, is probably the chip, because that's the AI technology in cars.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, a little chip. Yeah,
a little bitty chip, yeah, keeping all these great Ford trucks off the road.
The thing runs, so why not just sell it and say, hey, when the chip comes in, but anyway, I don't work it for it. They didn't ask me for my opinion anyway. But interesting enough, we did clothing, right? Clothing's only at 5%. That's not too bad. And I know I bought a pair of jeans not too long ago. I didn't feel like I paid any more than what I normally do. Cell phone, cable, internet, up about 20%.
Really?
Yeah. So the interesting thing is, after we did this, we were like, wait a minute. What we're being told is 9.1%.
Yeah.
But what our research says and what our experience is, it's way more than that. So the question is 9.1% accurate? Is that really what you should be planning on?
Right.
According to what we found out, that's not quite accurate. And so the question is, how do we plan for inflation when we really don't know what the actual inflation number is? Because if you're only planning for 9%, and here it is, we're probably closer to 20%, how do you actually plan for that? That's kind of the question that's a little tricky. And that's why we get a lot of calls around, hey, inflation, my dollar doesn't go as far as it used to, and I have less money at the end of the month. And sometimes we have more month at the end of the month than we have money.
Yeah.
And so we have clients callers in that situation as well. Again, not a great situation to be in.
Absolutely. And I love the name of this show, The Money Puzzle, because that's exactly what it is. When you come in to meet them, anyone at your office, it really is kind of taking an individual's puzzle pieces, everyone's different, and kind of placing them and looking at their big picture. Let's talk about what you do in the holistic approach, because everyone is different.
Absolutely. And I'll give you a good example. So we had a caller that came in or called in a couple of weeks ago, David and Lisa. And the interesting thing was when they called, they had said, "Hey, we're worried about inflation, but we're really worried about our really worried about our cash flow. And so we're like, okay, great. So come in. And they came in and we did what we offer everybody, especially callers right now. We offer a complimentary financial plan. So we did that. We did that for them. And interesting enough, very tough situation. They just hadn't never worked with a financial advisor before. So they didn't put things in place that they should have throughout their working years. And now they were both in retirement. And now they had more month at the end of the month than they had money.
Right.
And so they were struggling. So they came in to see what we could do. And unfortunately, in our business, I hate to say this, but we can't help everybody.
Right. Sometimes it's not good news.
Well, yeah. And it just, unfortunately, in a position to where there wasn't enough assets there to do much to help them.
Yeah.
Right. And so they just had a very tough situation. They were going to have to go back to work.
Right.
And they really couldn't lower their lifestyle anymore to make the numbers work.
Right.
And so that's one of the downfalls of not doing a plan and not working with a professional and not seeking professional advice. You can put yourself, in a tough situation, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in retirement where, our clients are sitting back, enjoying their retirement the way they want to because we did the planning and we put things in place in order to fight off inflation when inflation happens, fight off market volatility when market volatility happens. Our clients don't call us because they know they're set and safe. And here we are, David and Lisa have come in and said, hey, unfortunately, we just couldn't help them. Right. I hate to have that situation happens, but unfortunately, it happens.
And unfortunately, in our society, we really were never taught financial planning as children. I think we could understand the basics, right, of interest rates and how to pay off debt. But that's something. So I guess I'm saying, if you're at home feeling this, I'm worried about that person. Do not be embarrassed. Do not be worried. None of us were taught this. That's why we need professionals like you and your group. Now, the good news is, Brian, that a lot of times, I'd say more than not, you actually tell people you are ready to retire. Tell me about one of those great stories where I thought I had to work 6 more years. I can retire tomorrow. Thanks, Brian. Give me some of those.
Yeah, so we had a client come in several weeks ago. His name's Denny. And Denny had worked at Kroger his entire career. He's a great guy. He's hilarious. But the cool thing was when he came in, he's like, I'm just not sure. I think I'm ready, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
And so we did, what we offer every potential client, and that is a complimentary financial plan, just to make sure he was on the right track. And he, like most folks, we walked him through the process and said, yeah, if you want to retire, knock yourself out. Go tell Kroger, to find your replacement. So he did do that. He actually did it a couple of months later. But when he did that, he came in and after he retired, he stopped by the office and he was like, hey, I just want to let you know I did it today.
Awesome.
And we're like, that's awesome. And so it's just a perfect example to say, he took advantage of our offer to say, hey, come in. There's absolutely no obligation. He didn't have to continue to do business with us, but we walked him through that complimentary plan. He loved it, and he was like, hey, I actually want to continue to work with you guys. And so it was great. And that's really why we're in the business.
Right.
Is to see people come in and say, I got to retire, or I got to, marry off my kids, or get the kids out of the house, whatever your goals are. But it's pretty cool when they get to come back and say that. Yeah,
and you said it, what your goals are. Everyone has different goals, but I think we can all agree it's the American spirit for freedom. I want to be free. I don't want to have to get up and go to a job every single day for 5 days a week, but you can be free, or you can go back to work, or you can work part-time. Now, with Social Security, if you work part-time, can you still draw your, do you mind talking about Social Security now?
You can talk about anything you want to.
I know, right? Because
Yeah.
I don't want to say you know it all, because that's only something I would tell my husband, but I wouldn't really mean it. Okay, so if you Social Security, you can still work part-time and then still get the same amount, or it depends when you turn it on. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so you have what they call full retirement age. So everybody's a little bit different depending on when you were born. So if you decide to take Social Security benefits before your full retirement age and you continue to work, there is a penalty. But after your full retirement age, if you continue to work, you're fine. You may be taxed on it. That's a determination of how much you make that particular year, but you're not penalized. But taking benefits early and continue to work, if you make above a certain amount, it's like $19,000, something like that, you're penalized. So yeah, and that's one of those things. You cannot make the choice to take Social Security benefits in a vacuum. It has to be part of your puzzle, part of the puzzle piece to say, how does taking Social Security benefits fit within my overall puzzle? Because it's not just having that income that's coming in, it's also what is the tax ramifications of it? How does it affect me taking money out of my IRA? Am I going to be taxed more taking money out of my IRA? So there's lots of moving pieces, and that's what putting your puzzle together will help you figure out the answers.
Okay. Well, let's take a quick break. Let's give them the phone number for me, please, Brian, and tell them what they can expect when they come meet your wonderful team.
Yeah. So phone number 844-900-5210, and here's the. Don't be like David and Lisa. That's the biggest part of our story today is just don't be like David and Lisa. Don't not put a plan together, get into retirement and figure out, oh my gosh, I can't do it. So be like Denny that came in and took advantage of our complimentary review, came in, we looked at his cash flow, we looked at his risk management, we also looked at his estate plan just to make sure it was all in order. But those are really the three things that we look at. We looked at it for Denny, and Denny was like, yeah, hey, I can actually retire. He got great news, and 2 weeks or a couple months later, he retired, and he came in and said, heck yeah, that's what I just did. So we would just encourage you to take advantage of the complimentary review that we've got, that we provided for Denny. And again, take advantage of it as soon as you possibly can, because you're only going to benefit yourself by doing this early and not waiting until it's too late.
The sooner the better, absolutely. There's the number again, 844-900-5210. When we come back, we're going to talk about taxes and how you can actually keep more money in your pocket instead of sending it to Uncle Sam. Stay with us.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have. By running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Thank you for staying with us on The Money Puzzle. We were talking about taxes, and that's always someone's, I think everyone can agree, the least favorite subject. But you were saying that there is actually it's better to pay taxes now while they're lower than when they are higher. So what kind of questions do you get about taxes?
Yeah, so we, that very question, right? Well,
yeah.
I will say this, what's interesting is, so we have very specific meetings. This is one of our differentiators in our business, in that we have 3 specific meetings with clients, sometimes 2, depending on the client preference.
Okay.
But one of those meetings is we're specifically talk about taxes, okay? And that's all we talk about. No, we talk about other things too, but we will often have that person's tax preparer or CPA in on that conversation.
Nice.
Because we want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Sure.
Right? We can't, it's not good for me to give you advice and then you be getting advice from your CPA, which contradicts each other. And this is where taxes, sometimes there is a little bit of a conflict. For example, we had a client, Gina and David, that came in here recently, and they're business owners, and they were not taking a salary. And so what we wound up doing, we wound up having a conversation with their CPA, and their CPA was, his role is to make sure they pay the least amount of taxes for last year.
Right.
That's fine. He was giving them proper advice for that. Don't pay yourself a huge salary. Now, they had to pay themselves a little bit,
sure,
but not a huge salary, just barely enough to where the IRS will accept it. My point to them was, let's pay more taxes today by paying yourself the maximum up to the Social Security limits, which is like $140,000 this year a piece. And they were like, well, wait a minute. We're here talking about we want to pay less amount of tax. And I go, I understand that. And it sort of feels weird for me to tell you, here's some strategies to put in place to pay less tax this year. But then I turn around and tell you, here's a strategy to pay more tax. And it's exactly what you were saying. There are times where it can benefit you to pay more tax today to get a benefit down the road. In
Exactly.
their case,
You're looking at the big picture.
well, yeah, the CPA doesn't do that, right? He's only like, what can I do to get you to pay the least amount of taxes for last year?
But you're looking ahead.
Our role is to say, okay, what if you paid more taxes this year, okay, and got a benefit, i.e. Social Security, and down the road when you're 67 years old, that Social Security benefit for the amount that you pay in, what you get out of it is 5 to 10-fold,
Right.
depending on how long you live.
And
right?
that also has to do with the the Trump tax laws that are going to expire in 2025. So there's major uncertainty after that. We don't know what's going to happen,
yeah, who
right?
knows? We don't know what taxes are going to be. We know what they are today. But again, it wouldn't even matter what the taxes were, because the amount that you're going to pay Social Security tax into the system versus what you get out of it, and we can show these numbers because we can show every client, here's how much you paid in Social Security tax, and here's what your benefit is going to be if you turn it on at 67 and you live to 90 years old, which there's a great probability that a lot of people are living to 90, and they certainly don't plan for that. That's what our experience is. But we can show you that difference is enormous. Yeah. So in some cases, in most cases, it makes sense to pay some taxes now to benefit yourself down the road.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's so I'll give you another quick example. Yeah. From time to time, folks will come in and we're talking about, they're nearing retirement, so in that 62 to 65 range, and we do the complementary financial modeling that we do for everybody that comes in, and we show them if you don't take anything out of your IRA and you get to 72, there's a proposal in Congress right now to extend the ages when you have to take money out. It's called a required minimum distribution. That's not in place yet, but that's proposed. But if you wait until that point, you're forced to take out a certain amount. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, that can be a huge amount. It can be a massive amount of money. So what we find is that folks that are nearing 60 have not had exposure to their 401k their entire career. So their balances are not, they're in good balances, but they're not huge. Whereas folks that are my generation, I'm somewhere right around 50. So those folks that are my age and maybe around a couple, give or take a couple years, we've been taught to max out our 401ks our entire career. We're going to have massive 401ks at 72 years old or whatever the age is at that point. So we could be forced to take out hundreds of thousands of dollars. Wow. And you're talking about a major tax problem. Yeah. So again, our advice to folks that are coming in it might make sense to not put 100%, deferral into your 401k, put some on the after-tax side, pay the tax now, because there's a huge tax benefit to you down the road. And as you always say, everyone is completely different. So he's not just giving sweeping advice, because you look at every single family, their situation, you put everything to the test kind of under the microscope. Tell people where your office is and what they can expect when they come meet your wonderful team. And let's share that phone number, Brian. Yeah, phone number 844-900-5210. We're actually located at the corner of Hurstbourne Lane and Shelbyville Road, right behind P.F. Chang's. There's also, for those that are older, the Flash Q building. If you don't know the reference, just Google it. You'll see what we're talking about. But we're going to do exactly what we did for Denny that we mentioned earlier in the show. We're going to offer a complimentary financial review. And we look at things like cash flow planning. We look at risk management. We look at estate work. But in this case, we're talking about taxes, right? So that's an important piece of it. So we're going to look at what your tax ramifications are this year, but we're also going to make sure that you have the strategies in place to minimize your tax burden 5, 10, 15 years down the road. It's hugely important that you address that, because if you don't, you're going to get a big surprise that you're not going to like. Absolutely. All right, give us a call, 844-900-5210. We just have a limited amount of spots because we want to get your reservation for a meeting with you soon. So have your calendar ready. Leave your checkbook at home. The team just wants to meet you. Stay with us. We'll be right back. More with Brian Ramsey.
As a good saver, you've been putting away money during your working years. Studies find that the biggest fear of retirees is running out of money. Market volatility isn't just the downward movement of stock prices, it's the size and frequency of change. The more dramatic the ups and downs, the higher the volatility. This can put savers who are newly retired or a few years away from being retired at greater risk. Today's generation of retirees is not receiving traditional pensions as our parents or grandparents did. Instead, we have retirement accounts such as 401ks or 403bs. These accounts typically expose your money to market risk. The last thing you want right before retirement is to lose a portion of the money you need for income. But how do you turn these accounts into a retirement income? Is it safe to keep all your retirement money sitting in the stock market? The last thing you want is to lose a portion of the money you need for income due to market loss. By working with a financial professional, you can learn how to turn a portion of your savings into an income stream for life and income for the life of your spouse if you're married. We all have moments in our lives when we wish we had taken action sooner. Don't let procrastination reign on your retirement parade. Act now before it's too late. Please call our office to set up your no-cost, no-obligation retirement income review today.
Welcome back. We touched on Social Security a few minutes ago, and that's a big concern for a lot of you at home. We get calls about that. So what is the Social Security myth that I've heard you refer to, Brian?
Yeah, so what's interesting is we've all been told that Social Security benefits increase at the pace of inflation. That's what we've been told.
Yeah.
We just mentioned in the very beginning of the show that inflation was 9.1%. Now
Or more.
Or more. Yeah, exactly. But that's the government number.
Right.
Which, won't say much about a government number. That's why they had 70.5 was your RMD. Anyway, it's a government number. But the Social Security, again, we all look at it and say, well, it keeps up with the pace of inflation. And last year, Social Security benefits went up 5.9%. Right? That's great. But what really was inflation at that point?
Yeah.
More than 5.9%. This year, 9.1%. We'll find out in a couple of months what that number actually is, because I think the federal government's September, so we'll find out in October what Social Security benefits will go up. But here's the myth. The myth is that Social Security benefits keeps up with the pace of inflation. It just doesn't.
Right.
Because the government gives you a number that I'm telling you right now, we just went through some numbers at the beginning of the show. There's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And my guess is in September, when we get the number in October, there's going to be a disconnect. And so that's an issue for pre-retirees or retirees, or even those that are already retired, is you have to have other income sources to keep up with the pace of inflation. Because if you're just counting on Social Security, you're making a major mistake.
Yeah.
And so you have to put provisions in place, income sources in place to add to your Social Security. Because Social Security goes up a little bit. It's never going to keep up with the true pace of inflation. And so we have to have other income sources in place to be able to keep up with, especially this year, right?
Yeah.
Last year went up 5.9%. It's what the number said. This year it continued to go up, and that your dollar's just not going to stretch as far. So you have to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. It all starts with a plan. If you were to build a house or do anything, it would be crazy not to have a blueprint. But in our society, we're never really taught to have a plan. So this holistic approach is really the first step. And have you found that people might come to you with a statement for their 401k and say, here's my plan, and that's not a plan at all?
Well, I'll give it to you in the phrase of a puzzle, okay? Because we like to reference this. So it's okay if you give us a call and say, hey, I'm interested in coming in, but when you're talking about puzzle pieces, A, I don't even know where all my puzzle pieces are.
That's right.
And B, I've not even started putting the corner pieces together. It's the first ones we all look for,
right,
are the 4 corner pieces. And a lot of times we'll have folks walk in our door that don't even have that.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay. My father has had a CPA firm for years and years and years. And he would always call and say, where we were talking, he would say, well, I had another shoebox person walk in the door. And it's literally coming in with shoeboxes full of receipts and says, here, figure out my taxes. It's no different.
Right.
We have people come in that says, well, here's my 401k statement. Well, how often do you review it? Well, I think when I first came here 20 years ago, there was somebody that came in and told me I need to look at a different fund 5 years ago, but otherwise I don't ever look at it.
Right.
And so that's really where going through our process of walking through a financial model where we look at your 401k, we look at all the different pieces of your puzzle to make sure they all fit, right? We look at your 401k to make sure that you're invested properly and that you have the right amount of risk. We're going to look at all that stuff to make sure that your plan functions and that it fits together. Because if you look right over here, there's a little puzzle piece. How about right there? There's a good camera guy right there. See that puzzle piece? Well, we get calls on that. Hey, did you know you have a mistake in your puzzle? No, we don't. That's intentional.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, see? I know.
Look at that.
I know. And it's intentional because we see folks that come in that are trying to put a puzzle piece in the wrong area, right? They're trying to jam it in.
A square hole,
because it does look like it kind of fits, right? And you would go, oh, that kind of fits. But it doesn't, because it's a side piece. It's not a piece that's in the middle. And so that's intentional to say that is what happens when folks call us from the show and say, hey, I want to take advantage of, of your complimentary review. And they'll come in and say, hey, I'm trying to fit that piece into the wrong area. And we're like, no, let's take a big step back.
Yeah.
Let's take a full review on what it is you're trying to accomplish. Let's look at your goals. Make sure that you have the appropriate amount of risk, making sure that you are creating the income sources that you're going to need throughout your lifetime to keep up with the pace of inflation. It's important that you do all that.
Absolutely. And if you're not having a conversation with your financial planner, with your, maybe big box, I've never even heard from mine in 3 years. That's why I switched. If you're not having that conversation, it needs to happen. Today is the day, right?
It is. And it's one of those things that I gave an example in the very beginning, with David and Lisa.
Yeah.
And they just didn't do the planning. And you can not be like them. You have a choice. You could be like them and just not pick up the phone and call and say, I'm going to just wing it. Or you can be like Denny and say, okay, I'm going to take advantage of this complimentary offer. And I'm going to pick up the phone and call and say, you know what? I don't care what my puzzle piece looks like. These guys are not going to judge me. They're just going to say, hey, let's work and put this thing together and, and see how all my pieces of the puzzle work together, from income planning to risk management to estate planning. We can help you put all that together so that you can be like Denny and walk into your boss on Monday or Friday afternoon and say, you know what, I'm out of here, find my replacement. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want. And that's what we want for you.
Absolutely.
So phone number for us, 844-900-5210.
And we'll see you next week for the Money Puzzle. Thanks so much for joining us.